Joining me now, Democratic Congressman from Illinois, Mike Quigley. He's a member of the Appropriations and Intelligence Committees. Congressman, good to have you with us this morning. So, as of this Friday morning, looks like another week or so to get things done, to get everything to move forward, to get to that vote on infrastructure as well. Is that enough time?
I think so. I was told last night I'm being overly optimistic. That comes from two things: a lifetime of being a Chicago Cub baseball fan, and I've seen this before. As you know, I lived through getting the Obamacare healthcare package done, which was just as transformative, just as complicated. It required just as much compromise. And, honestly, it was left for dead several times along the way. So I think we can get this done. It's too important not to.
We know this was a major gamble for the president yesterday, coming to the Hill, delaying his trip. He is, of course, in Rome today, right now meeting with the prime minister in Italy. I know you wanted this done yesterday as well. Do you think it would have helped if the president had insisted yesterday on a vote?
I think he did the right mix there. He explained why it was so important, and he left it to their final decision. Lawmakers typically don't like being dictated to, but he explained, but basically you have to take your victories where you can. We can't legislate in the ideal world we'd all like to live. We have to legislate the reality of the situation, which is complicated by reconciliations, filibusters, and people who aren't necessarily willing to compromise.
When you talk about people who aren't necessarily willing to compromise, have you seen changes on that front among your colleagues?
Well, first, I'll start with my Republican colleagues. As you see, we're basically dealing in half the tent here. Half the Senate, who's willing to work with us to get these things done, and a little over half of the House. We only have a 3-vote majority. I was pleased last night to see the Progressive Caucus say that they support the framework that the president's talking about on reconciliation. I see that as a compromise. I would only suggest that you take your victories where you can. And there's a lot to be proud of in the infrastructure package. A lifetime largest expansion providing fresh drinking water and wastewater treatment that'll help millions of families get safe water, and a lot of measures to create jobs and expand our economy into the next century.
There has been a fair amount of frustration. I know, as you said, you were laying out what you went through, of course, when it came to the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. But the reality is, I know you tweeted yesterday, this is how the legislative process is supposed to work. Compromise is how the sausage gets made. Your colleague, Debbie Dingell, was on our air yesterday morning prior to this meeting with the president, and she said she had never seen the sausage making this bad in Washington. With so much mistrust out there publicly within the Democratic caucus, how much of a focus is repairing that within the...
Look, it's always been a big tent. I don't know that it was better or worse now than it was 10 years ago when we passed health care. It was ugly at times then. So, I think you have to build a day at a time. And the fact that the president came to us the second time on this, that the progressives seem to be, willing to accept that, gives me hope here. And we recognize as time goes on that, this is critical to the Biden administration. It's critical to what we heard in this last segment on your program, to show the rest of the world that we can function. That's extremely important, not just for our economy, but for our national security and our relationship with the rest of the world.
To your point, back here at home, right, we know the president had said yesterday it's not hyperbole. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but as I'm told, he definitely did use that word. It's not hyperbole for him to say that the majorities in the Senate and the House and his presidency are really riding on this legislation. Did that message get through? That's something that's been discussed for the last couple of weeks, but to hear the president saying that to the full Democratic caucus, that felt like a different tone.
I think so. And I think it weighs heavily on the caucus. I think they're also starting to recognize that, look, any one of the provisions in this package, if passed alone, would be seen as landmark legislation. And we have to judge it not necessarily for what's not in there, which frustrates me too, but what is in there. Universal pre-K, the expansion of Pell Grants, expanding Medicare to include hearing. I could go on for a dozen other measures. Those are absolutely critical. So it's important to move forward, not just with the Biden administration's agenda, but with these key elements that are so important to our nation's future.
Are you concerned about the impact of what we've seen over the last of the sausage making, of very public sausage making on 2020, especially in your state of Illinois? We've got a full slate there coming up in 2022.
Look, I'm concerned. Every generation has had its challenges. The greatest generation lived through the Depression and beat back the fascists. Our generation faces these extraordinary challenges like climate change and the others that we're talking about in the trip to Europe with the president. But what concerns me isn't just what's going on in D.C., it's what's going on perhaps between the ears of Americans and what's in their hearts. You know, are we so polarized that we can't see that we're more united, we're stronger than when we are united and we are divided? It is that animosity that I saw in person, being in the room on January 6th. That's what concerns me most. It's reflected in D.C., and I think that's what we have to address as we move forward.